Ahoy mateys, Jacob here again, and we're going on another ferry trip, this time to Seattle, and on one of my favorite Washington State ferries too. This is the Kitsap. She is one of the Issaquah class ships. With 6 of these built between 1979 and 1982, they're the most used boats in the WS Ferry fleet. Here she is, coming into Dock 1 at the Bremerton Ferry Terminal. The Bremerton Ferry Terminal has a large waiting room for passengers to wait indoors when it's cold or raining. Going to Seattle from Bremerton is free for walk-on passengers, but there are ticket machines for buying your return tickets for coming back from Seattle. I recommend this because the ticket booths in Seattle can be crazy during rush hour, and it will save you some time too. Plus, you only need a ticket to go out of Seattle. Above the ticket machines, there is a television showing a safety video as well as a map that shows you where every WS ferry is in real time. Once the Kitsap is moored, we see the cars driving off the ferry. Passengers who walked on use the gangway on the main deck. When all the cars have driven off, it's time for another load of automobiles to drive on. They start with bikes, and the rest come on afterward. Once the passengers have gotten off, it's our turn to board. Our boat, the Kitsap, was built in 1980 and was refitted to carry more cars in 1992. More on that when I ride her classmate, the South, in a future video. The Kitsap carries up to 1,200 passengers and 124 cars. She is 328 feet long and weighs about 3,310 long tons. Since tickets are not required for the ride to Seattle, I was able to get on without a hitch. The ends of this boat are called pickle forks, called so because they look like 2-point forks. The Hayak, built in 1967, was the first vessel to have this feature, and every Washington State ferry built after her has had it too. This feature helps the crew in the wheelhouse see better, especially for docking, and we can see the cars driving on too. The main passenger cabin of the Kitsap is very spacious. There's even a food and drink stand, where they serve many things from candy bars to hamburgers and hot dogs. All of the Washington State ferries and most of the BC ferries are bidirectional, which means they can conveniently change direction without having to turn around. With a wheelhouse at each end, this is arguably the most efficient way to run a car ferry. We're now leaving Bremerton, and it's all aboard for Seattle.
If this should occur, will upon arrival. Thank you for sailing aboard the Washington State Ferries.
We're now coming into Coleman Dock, which is the main ferry terminus for Seattle, Washington, the Emerald City. Coleman Dock has a very large terminal which was just completed in 2023. These turnstiles are where you scan your ticket for the trip back to either Bremerton or Bainbridge Island. But tonight, I'm taking a different ferry back to Bremerton, and I'll be covering that in the next video. Exiting the ferry terminal, you come onto a walkway with this neat looking guard post with these glass balls in it. It also looks over the drive-on lanes. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, then push that like button. And if you want to see more of my content, push my subscribe button to ensure you don't miss any new videos. Keep your steam up!